Thank you, Mum. A short story by Lynette Sloan, written in 2017. It was spring 2065. Rob sat dozing in the warm glow of the open fire. Since retiring, he only had to shut his eyes for a moment and he was asleep. Marcy shot him a glance and, noticing the regular fall and rise of his chest, eased out of her comfy chair and tiptoed into the hallway. Her husband, a light sleeper, opened his eyes. "You know you can't leave the house." The elderly lady froze next to the front door, her hand on the doorknob. "This is ridiculous. It's just a little cold. I used to go to work with flu and much worse." And spread it around the office. "Sweetie, come back in the warm. Your wristband says you have an infection rate of 59. The authorities will know already. That thing sends them hourly reports." Marcy knew her illness was advanced. She took a small plastic bag out of her pocket and opened it. Inside was a white tablet. She held it in her palm for a moment, then placed it in her mouth and swallowed. This would ward off the virus for a few more hours. She cleared her throat and walked back into the living room and sat in the chair. "I should take the band off, or put it on the dog. Stupid idea, making it illegal to go out with a little bug." After the 2050s devastating camel flu pandemic, which killed 235 million people, the World Health Organization declared that everyone should wear a diagnostic wristband. These notified the authorities of the onset of any infection. Sick individuals now received a message stating they should quarantine themselves in their homes. Should they succumb to the illness and die, the wristband would inform the medical undertakers of the wearer's demise, and a clean-up team would be dispatched to collect and incinerate the body within the hour. There were no exceptions. The idea was to eradicate colds, flu, and any other contagious sickness, such as the new virus that was sweeping across Europe. Set high on the wall above the fireplace, Rob and Marcy's compulsory viewing monitor sprang to life without either person having to touch it, and a middle-aged man appeared on screen. He wore wire-framed glasses and a white doctor's coat. The man studied Rob and Marcy for a moment, then spoke. "Marcy Jonas, make yourself known." Marcy raised her hand. "That would be me." "I'm Dr. Shields, your physician for the duration of this infection." "Beats queuing at the surgery. We used to do that when I was a girl." Dr. Shields frowned. He was busy and had no time for pleasantries. "You have the HB47 virus. I will ask you the obligatory questions. Answer truthfully or be held in contempt." Marcy nodded. "Of course." "In the last 4 weeks, have you come across anyone with cold or flu symptoms?" Marcy shook her head. So the doctor continued. "Has anyone visited your home with similar symptoms?" Marcy coughed into her handkerchief before answering. "Of course not. We would have reported them to the authorities." "Last question. Have you, or do you know of anyone, who has left the safety area and entered any forbidden zone?" Rob shifted in his chair. "Is all this necessary? Neither of us knows where this blasted infection's come from." His wristband bleeped, and he pulled back his sleeve to view it. Infection rate of 42. The doctor checked the incoming data on his work tablet, then looked up. "Robert Jonas, you have the same infection as Marcy Jonas. Your medication shots will be shortly delivered to your address. As you are both over 70, we will give you the usual dose plus 2 boosters. Read the instructions before administering. Neither of you is permitted to leave your premises until your infection level falls below 15. You will remain in your home and keep all windows and doors sealed." Both answered, "Yes, doctor." The transmission ended and the screen went blank. Rob stood. "I don't trust Big Brother. That thing could be watching us all the time." "Or listening to us," his wife added. She signalled Rob to follow her into the kitchen and turned on the tap. "What are you doing?" "They can't hear us with the tap on." "You watch too many spy movies." "Tobias gave me this virus when I saw him last week." Rob stared at his wife. "Last week? You saw Tobias last week?" Marcy nodded. "Where?" "He was in town." Their son, Tobias, had gone rogue years before. This was the term for one who wouldn't wear the wristbands or comply with the one world government directives. He and many others like him knew the bands told the authorities of their every move, and soon these bands would be replaced with the RFID chip, which would be compulsory. Rob shook his head. He wanted to shout at his wife for being reckless, but remembered someone might be listening to their conversation, so he spoke in a controlled tone. "Our son made his decision long ago." Marcy touched her husband's arm. "He's all we have left." "Like I said, he made his decision." Rob noted the look of despair in his wife's eyes and took a deep breath and sighed. She spoke quietly. "I have to get medical supplies to him or he'll die." "You know how risky that would be." Rob wandered back into the living area, so she called after him. "Fancy a cuppa?" "Sure. No, make it a hot chocolate. I think I have a temperature." Marcy knew what she must do. She had rehearsed it in her mind 100 times. But would the white tablet she had taken give her enough time? She took the small paper packet her son had given her and emptied the contents into her husband's mug. Tilly, their miniature poodle, trotted into the kitchen and stood next to her food bowl, looking up expectantly. "Okay, just one," Marcy said to the animal, passing her a chocolate biscuit. The little dog munched it, then followed her mistress into the living room. Rob and Marcy sat together on the sofa and sipped their drinks. Rob looked to his wife. "We've been happy, haven't we? We've had our difficulties, but yes." He squeezed her hand. "I don't want to live without you." "Where's this coming from? You getting soppy in your old age?" Marcy reached the throw off the back of the sofa and placed it over them both. She noted Rob was nearly asleep. When his breathing had become regular, she slipped out from under the cover. The doorbell rang and Tilly ran into the hallway barking. Marcy glanced at her husband. He hadn't stirred. The powder was doing its job. She opened the door. A small package sat on the bench on the open-fronted porch, and the delivery man was walking down the path. When he was back inside his van and looking towards her, she raised her hand to acknowledge receipt of the medication, and he nodded, then drove away. He wouldn't risk becoming infected. If left untreated, the HB47 virus was fatal. The elderly woman stepped indoors. Her husband would sleep until morning. Marcy kissed him on his forehead and whispered, "Sorry, love." She put on her long coat and pushed the package containing the 6 injections into her pocket. The small click of her wristband told her her medical information and location had just been sent to the medical centre. She had 1 hour. She took off the wristband, placed it in the bathroom next to the shower, then slipped out of the house. "No one will be out in this rain," she thought as she strode down the street and flagged down a taxi. In its early stages, HB47 caused only a slight headache and a raised temperature, but within days the sufferer would have difficulty breathing as their lungs filled with blood and they effectively drowned. The white tablet she had taken would delay the symptoms until she could deliver the precious package. Noting the driver's cab was partitioned off with glass, Marcy opened the back door and stepped into the vehicle. He wouldn't catch her infection. She smiled and tried to appear normal, just a woman out visiting relatives. "Talbot Road, the top end next to the football field, please." The middle-aged taxi driver nodded. "Don't get asked to go that way very often. It's near the forbidden zone." "Oh, my sister lives up there. I've told her to move this way, but she likes to look out onto the woodland." The rain eased a little as they neared their destination. Marcy dropped the fare into the cash box and took his receipt, and the driver let her out and drove away. The wind blew some raindrops off the fir trees edging the football field, and a few landed in a puddle at her feet. She buttoned her coat and took a left fork in the footpath. The gate leading into the woodland was open, so she walked through, hoping no one was watching out of the back windows of the nearby council houses. The ground was soft underfoot, and she was glad she was wearing her winter boots. 10 minutes later, she was standing on the bank of the river she knew she must cross. If only she could remember where the crossing point was. A voice whispered behind her, "Mum." She turned. Tobias had grown into a well-built man, his stature more like that of his late grandfather than his father, who was lean. Today her son's handsome face looked haggard, and dark lines lay beneath his eyes. He coughed into a handkerchief and tried to hide it before his mother could see the blood and spittle. "I'll help you across the creek. Can't have you been swept away," he said, giving her a hug. "Missed you, Mum. I didn't want you to catch this." "It's not so bad, not yet. It was my idea. This was the only way to get you the medication you all needed." Half an hour later, they had crossed the river and negotiated the marshlands, and were sitting in a warm, dry subterranean room lit only by a small fire. "Nana, did you manage the tree bridge?" "With your father's help," Marcy said, smiling at her eldest grandson. "It's not much of a bridge, more like a fallen tree with twigs that caught my coat." Tobias teased, "You nearly fell in the creek 3 times. She was glad he had given his family the injections that would save their lives. However, she had lied when she said she would return home. Tobias was a loving son, and if he had known she had given him her injection, he wouldn't have used it on himself. The white tablet had done its job, but its effects were now wearing off. Her heart raced, and sweat beads were already forming on her forehead and upper lip. She couldn't stay. If she did, Tobias would give her the booster injection, and that wasn't her plan. He was sicker than the others and would need it himself. She had lived her life. He was still relatively young and had a family to look after. She couldn't go home. Even if she made it back, the authorities would charge her and Rob with supplying medications to rogue citizens. Rob knew nothing of her plan. None of this was his fault. If she didn't return, the medical board would realize that he was innocent and would send him a new batch of injections. For a moment, Marcy wondered if he would use them. He had said he didn't want to live without her. She shook her head. She had done what needed to be done. There were no regrets. Now back across the marshland and creek, Marcy hugged her son one last time and walked away, biting back tears. She followed the river upstream for nearly an hour. Her head swam and she gasped for breath but couldn't give up. She didn't want her body to be discovered near her family's hideaway. This would confirm to the authorities that her son was living nearby. She knew from the news reports that they would mount a search. The officer in charge of capturing rogue citizens was relentless, and he wouldn't stop searching until Tobias's whereabouts had been discovered and his whole family were imprisoned in a high-security compound. Marcy walked further into the woodland. pushing on through the undergrowth until she could walk no further. Her legs gave way and she fell onto the soft ground. For a moment, she looked up at the tree canopy and watched a squirrel leaping from branch to branch. She sighed, aware of the dampness soaking through her clothing. It was almost soothing. A fox moved through a nearby thicket, but she didn't notice. Now unaware of her surroundings, she closed her eyes. As she drifted into hazy nothingness, she remembered the look of gratitude on her daughter-in-law's face when little Daniel was given his life-saving shot and Tobias turned to her, his eyes brimming with tears as he said, "Thank you, Mum."